Hey guys, Charlie Murphy here. About to start doing a deep dive into my database here, my new stat checker and pool analysis tool. Show you a bit how this works. You start going through things step by step to see how GTO bots would play, to see how regs are playing, and see how some of the top winners in the games are playing. We have here is we have a new database I've just put together with a recent data mine of ACR hands, as well as some hand histories from a game with 6 GTO bots playing against each other. So we'll take a look here. 2 copies also. Start by just looking at the general overview tab that I've got here. Bots are playing 22-19 with a 10% 3-bet. A little bit of calling in position, but not too much, defending the big blind about 27%. Aggression frequencies around 37% in total, most aggressive on the flop, a little below average aggression on the turn. Whereas the reg pool on ACR, they're playing a bit looser, 27-22. I guess that's substantially looser than the bots are as a whole. 3-betting 11%, pretty similar. Calling in position at 3.9% and calling the big blind at 35%. That will be influenced by sizing, of course. However, in general, I'd expect the pool should be playing a bit tighter as the bot database, the bot hands, I believe, are actually rake free. So if anything, they're more incentivized to call, and they're still not calling that much. Overall aggression frequency from the regs also pretty good, 36 overall compared to 37. Flop and turn aggression frequencies matching up perfectly. River 38 for the bots and 36 for the regs, so they are playing pretty similar here. Overall raise first in. Bots are going 18, 22, 29, 43, and 44%, starting from under the gun and moving all the way down the line to the small blind raise first in spot. In contrast, regs are going 19, 21, 28, 44, and 45. Looks like pretty similar, even though their overall RFI is a couple ticks higher. Curious why that would be. Slightly looser under the gun, slightly tighter middle position. I mean, these are all within 1%. It's probably more a question of how much opportunity they're being given to open late, as perhaps the pool is not forcing the player out quite as frequently. Regs have a bit of open limping. Looks like essentially zero from all the free play spots, everything before the blinds. Open limping just shy of 3% blind on blind. These particular bot hands play raise or fold in all spots, including blind on blind. But looking pretty similar. Folding versus 3-bets. And 4-betting, we're looking at 58% for the bots. The regs are folding slightly less than that. Especially out of position, 51% versus 61%. Bots are 4-betting a little bit more often than the regs are, 16-14. And some of the, let's see here, isolation stats obviously aren't going to be too relevant here for the bots. The bots never limp, so there's never any chances to ISO. Versus 4-bets. Looks like the 4-bet stats are extremely similar for the bots and the regs, which with the bots 5-bet jamming a bit more often, 23% versus 19. And then folding versus the 5-bets. It looks like the regs are folding versus the 5-bets. Out of position a bit more than the bots, but in position a bit less. If anything, that doesn't let me missing a few in position 4-bets. Looking at the post-flop stats, the bots 51% win-win soft flop, regs at 48%, probably partially influenced by playing multi-way pots here. Went to showdown, 34 for the bots versus 29 for the regs, so the bots are doing a much better job at getting their hands to showdown. The regs are winning at showdown more often, probably playing nittier than the bots. That would not surprise me. And then we've got the one at showdown when betting or raise the river stat to give an indication of just how bluffy they are. Looks like the regs are more bluffy than the bots in both the river betting and river raising line, as they're winning at showdown after betting or raising is 59 and 59% respectively, versus the bots at 60 and 63. Bots are probably finding thinner value bets and thinner value raises would be my expectation. Perhaps giving up a bit more often too, just bluffing historically has been so good. Squeezing very similar, bots at 8%, regs at 8.7. Regs folding a lot less versus the squeeze. They may be size dependent, though I think regs do tend to call squeezes, especially when they're not going to be fully in position too often. Bots do not cold call 3-bets at all. Regs barely do. Cold 4-betting, regs and bots both a tick over 4%, and folding to cold 4-bets 51 or 52%. So extremely similar play from the reg pool and the bots, at least overall, with the regs tending to be a little bit less aggressive, a little bit looser. They're opening hands a bit wider, they're calling 3-bets a bit more, they're not 4-betting quite as much, and they're not getting to showdown, they're folding a bit more often than the bots would. So that's a basic overview. What this system also lets me do is pull up individual players from the database. I've got about a 7 million hand data mine over the past year from ACR. The bot database is about 5 million hands. So one thing I can do with this, I can pull up some of the top winners in the database and see how they might compare to both the reg pool and the bots. Start with C. Westmoreland, the biggest winner in my database, winning $500,000 in just under 100,000 hands. Good win rate, 6.4 or 7.1, depending if you like equity adjusted or actual winnings better. I'm more of an EV adjusted guy, but I realize that is a point of debate among some players. Regardless, I think it's pretty clear this guy is a damn good player just based on his win rate, his results. He's playing really high stakes too, to have that kind of win rate and volume translate to that kind of actual dollar winnings. I believe this is Davy Jones, who's a very well-respected player. I don't know him personally, but I know him by reputation, and he's considered very good. Let's see how he's differing from what the pool and the bots are doing. He's playing 37-25, so substantially looser in six-handed games than either bots or regs. Taking a bit at how he's getting there, raising first in 21, 26, 30, 45, 51. So he's picking a few extra hands to bring it in, starting even from under the gun. Extra 3% under the gun, extra 4% in middle position. Cutoff's pretty good, button's pretty good in the small blind. He finds 5-6% extra steals. Never open limping. Looks like he has 1/10% limp blind on blind. Maybe a misclick, may have been situational. Pretty safe to say he's almost never doing it. And taking a look at how he ISOs compared to the pool. Not very many ISO chances, given that this guy plays high stakes and probably doesn't face open limps very often. Let's see here. The sample size is small from middle position and cutoff ISOs. I'm just going to ignore them entirely. Button over 51 samples, he's ISO in 45%, which is well above the pool's ISO range at about 30. Looks like what the pool is doing is 19, 23, and 30 from middle position, cutoff, and button, which roughly translates towards what the under the gun middle position and cutoff opens would be, just shifted down a spot, which I do think is a pretty good heuristic for how to approach ISOing limps. Now, Westmoreland here, Davy Jones is doing it a lot more aggressively here, going 45% from the button, and some reason to believe he's doing it more aggressive from the cutoff as well. Out of the blinds here, BVB, big blind versus small blind limper. Westmoreland's going 46%, whereas the regs are only popping up about 39%, so he's a little bit looser there too. Then ISOing against in-position limpers from the blinds, we're 26 in the small blind, 34 in the big blind. That strikes me as very aggressive. Reg pool is going about 20% ISO from the blinds, which still isn't necessarily all that tight in my opinion, but this crusher right here is obviously taking it substantially further, going after the limper. So it's the first thing that jumps out at me, what he's doing differently than what the reg pool is doing. That and just playing more hands. Presumably he's an excellent post-flop player, which lets him do this and get away with it. So he's going to play a lot of these zero EV mixed frequency hands as opens, or even some slight losers, just because he's going to make it up post-flop. That's how he ends up playing 35-27 as opposed to 27-22 from the reg pool. Three betting a bit more, 13% versus 11%. Calling in position 2.6% against 3.9. So he's cold calling less in position, but more from the big blind, and three betting more. Again, this guy's playing high stakes, so he's probably more incentivized to cold call compared to the reg pool in general, just because the rake will be super low in the high stakes games. Four betting about the same, although keep in mind his four bet range. The four bet frequency of 14% is going to translate to a wider actual four bet range, because his raise first in that he's starting with to have four bet opportunities is starting wider. So this is slightly misleading that he's four betting the same frequency as the regs, because he's just got a wider RFI range to make his four bet range at the same frequency translate into a looser and wider four bet range. As far as how he defends three bets in general, just via calls, it looks like he's folding 8% less globally than the reg pool is. In position, he's folding 8% less. Out of position, folding 8% less. I think it's pretty safe to say he is definitely calling more hands against three bets. And again, he's starting with a wider pre-flop range to begin with. His fold to four bets, he's not rolling over to those either. His three bet range is wider than the pool. He's folding a lower frequency of those. In position, slightly more, but out of position, he's folding way less, 32% versus 44%. Five betting all in, a little bit less than the reg pool, but off of a wider base, so it's probably about a similar five bet all in range. And then his fold to five bets looks pretty similar to what the pool is doing. Looks reasonably balanced, matching up with what the bots were doing as well. Aggression frequency in line here. Slightly more aggressive on the flop, I guess only by 1%. He's within 1% or 2 overall on every street. He's winning when we saw the flop a bit more often than the reg pool. He's going to showdown slightly more, winning at showdown slightly more. And let's see. Yeah, winning at showdown slightly more. Oop, lost him. Let me get him back up here. Yeah, and then winning at showdown when betting the river, he's finding a way to get more value hands in both his bet range there. Although pretty similar, just subtle differences: 57 versus 55% from the reg pool, and 58 versus 59 when he's raising. Squeezing about the same as the regs, folding a bit more under extremely few chances, only 11 samples right there. I'm guessing he's facing cold calls very infrequently in the high stakes games, except for from the big blind. Really never cold calling three bets, 0.3%. Misclicks or very weird situational stuff. A cold four betting, very aggressive, 6% against 4.1, and he's folding versus cold four bets a lot less than the overall pool, 36% to 41. So overall, we can see what he's doing is he's playing more hands. He's definitely going after limpers more aggressively. He's defending three bets and four bets a little bit lighter. And looks like he's playing similar plus flop, maybe defending and getting hands to showdown slightly better, winning slightly more often, and definitely going crazier with the cold four bets and not giving them quite as much respect. Take a look at one other guy in the database here. I love Avril Lavigne, winning 400,000 over 120,000 hands, win rate at 8 to 8.7. I believe this is Matt Marinelli, another player I don't know personally, but very much respect his reputation and what I've heard of him. Looks like what Avril is doing is playing 31-24 as opposed to 27-22. The RFI range looks very, very similar to what the regs and the bots are doing from the earlier spots. Cutoff, he goes up to 31. Let me see here. Button 44, small blind 49. So he may be getting slightly looser in later positions. That's probably circumstantial or situational. I would guess this guy is playing pretty close to a simplified GTO pre-flop RFI strategy. And then in later positions, if you either have fish or nitty type players behind you that are either going to play poorly post flop, or overfold or not three bet enough pre flop, you can start sneaking a few more hands in. But it's a little bit less. Well, it's significantly less extreme than what Westmoreland was doing. ISOs, ISOing 12%, 19%, 38%. So it looks reasonably tight from middle position, cut off even on the tight side, button getting kind of loose, and then isoing more like the pool does in the blinds, both against in position limpers and blind on blind. He's limping the small blind behind 36%. I forget what Davey was doing. Let's double check that. Davies limping behind 31% and ISO in 26. So Davies playing 57% from the small blind when there's in position limpers, and Marinelli is playing 36 and 20. So playing pretty similar, just ISOing a bit less and limping behind a bit more. 3-bet 12%, cold call in position 5.1%, calling the big blind 43%. So at first glance, it looks like Marinelli's 3-betting slightly more than the pool, definitely calling more in position. Low rate games, so I could find it being justified. Again, looks like the folding to 3-bets here, common with the other big winner, or the other biggest winner in my database. 4-betting range is pretty similar. 4-betting frequency is pretty similar. But defending 3-bets with calls, just because the fold frequency goes down by about 4 or 5%. So not quite as extreme as what Davey was doing. But still folding in position slightly less, out of position slightly less by a couple of ticks each. Defending 4-bets pretty aggressively too. 5-bet jamming about on par with what the pool does, maybe not even quite as much as the bots. But then defending 4-bets looks like folding 5-6% less, both in position, out of position. And then folding to 5-bets, he may be 4-bet bluffing a good bit, just because I didn't think this guy was a very heavily MDA influenced guy, and those are things some of the MDA stables and pools were teaching for a while. Or it may just be sample size noise over an 87 hand sample. Overall aggression, slightly more than the pool. More on the flop, a little bit less on the turn. Maybe going a bit more polarized than the pool does on the turn, or even than the bots do on the turn. Then a little extra river aggression, presumably bluffing the river a lot. Winning more when seeing the flop than the regs do. 51 versus 48 on par with what the bots are coming up with. Going to showdown just about as much as the bots do, far more than the reg pool does. Winning at showdown about on par with the reg pool, however, doing it by getting there a good bit more often. So he's probably showing down a lot weaker, probably not folding the river quite as much. And then when the showdown, when betting or raising the river, he's winning less than the bots and even less than the reg pool, which tells me he's got more bluffs in those river bets and raise ranges right there. Again, I'm not terribly surprised to hear that based on what I think I know of this player's reputation. Squeezing 7%, a little bit less than the pool, a little bit less than the bots. Fold versus squeeze is too small a sample to be meaningful. Absolutely no cold calls versus 3-bets. Not that it's a common thing for the bots or the pool to be doing much of. Cold 4-betting right on par with what the pool does and what the bots do, 4.1%. And again, folding versus cold 4-bets a bit less than either the reg pool or the bots. So similar themes here from this other top winner we're taking a look at is not quite as pronounced, but a little bit looser pre-flop with the opens. The ISOing not, maybe from the button, but other than that, not going nearly as crazy as Davey did. More in line with the pool. 3-betting slightly more, cold calling a good bit more, both in position and out. But another common thing with both Marinelli and Davey are folding to 3-bets a lot less, folding to 4-bets a lot less, and folding to cold 4-bets a lot less. This particular player's more aggressive on the flop and river than the pool or the bots, and a little bit less on the turn. But it's subtle, it's not huge. Winning when you see the flop more often, getting to showdown a good bit more often than the pool does, and definitely bluff betting and bluff raising the river a bit more often. So got a basic overview here of how the reg pool is playing on ACR recently, how the bots would play in a game full of bots, and how some of the top crushers on ACR in this database have performed. We'll take a deeper look here next at how the players are raising first in and defending raise first in.